Hi. Thank you so much for joining. Hey, Billy. Oh my gosh. Hey, Kim. Hey, everyone. This is our first Rise Parent Prep series of the new school year. So I'm really hey, friend. Really excited to have you join us today. We are starting off this school year in unprecedented times. And hi. And we want to talk about how we can engage, apply. Hey, everyone, thanks for joining. Um, can be applied to any age of our young scholars. So, my name is Gina Parker Collins. Let me reintroduce myself at the beginning of the new school year. I am founder of RISE, Resources in Independent School Education, and we are a network that supports Black and Brown families navigating independent schools, getting in and through in amazing ways and in ways that they're thriving. So we partner with schools like St. Luke's School. And right now we have with us, so glad she's able to join us today as head of school. You know, you're really busy. You got a lot of things you're doing. So we are totally honored to have with us Tracey Fedonchik, who is head of school at St. Luke's School in New York City in the West Village, to have this conversation with us about how families and schools. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Wow, Tracey, we have a nice little crowd here. And we just want to engage around these unprecedented times. We've talked about this, right, Tracey, that we are dealing with a lot of intensity around this election, a lot of just a lot, and we want to make
A
sure that
lot.
okay, we're going to keep this broad. We're not going to get into any specific candidate, or any particular group, but we are focusing on our students and how families and schools can engage them around what they know what's going on, right? Tracey. So first of all, again, Tracey Fedonchik, do you want to say anything more about St. Luke's before we just dive right on in? Because we're going to spend about 20-25 minutes talking. If you have any questions, comments, please just drop them in the comment section and we'll do our best to get to them.
Well, first of all, Gina, I just want to thank you for having me on. I
My
mean, this is,
pleasure.
as you said, this is an unprecedented time, and parents, families are really struggling with how to talk about civic engagement and the election, and that is something that we at St. Luke's have thought a lot about. So, a little bit about St. Luke's. We are a JK through 8 independent school in the West Village. We have a very neighborhood community feel, although we have representatives from 37 zip codes across New York, almost all of the boroughs, New Jersey and Westchester. And so, we proudly represent New York City and still offer that neighborhood sort of feel. And we're grounded in values. And, I think that's one of the touchstones for us as we have been thinking about the election in this, in this unprecedented time, and how we really lean into who we are as a school and what we value. And that has been it's been wonderful to work with a school that has such a firm understanding of its values and what it stands for.
Mhm. Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you for being a partner school, a member school with
Well,
Rise.
so
So
happy to be.
thank you. So let's just begin. Why is it important to engage our students, particularly those 13 and under, around civic engagement and elections? I mean, for most of us, we're probably not even talking to them about it, maybe, and we're leaving it up to social media and everyone else to inform them. But why is it so important that we engage them intentionally, schools and parents?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking that, because we always want to go to the why. So a little bit about me, just to give a little bit of a context. This is my 23rd year as an educator, but I started out in third and fifth grade classrooms. So I'm always a classroom teacher at heart. And I've actually been a classroom teacher for longer than I've been an administrator. And so I'm firmly rooted in who children are and their developmental phases. And so, why it's so important for us to be speaking about engaging in conversation and dialogue around the election and civics and more generally
Mhm.
is that kids are curious. They have, I mean, these ages, these young ages pre 13, they are so curious about the world around them. They are trying to make sense of it. And every new piece of information is creating their schema and helping them to better understand the world and ultimately their place in it. And as a member of a democratic society, one of our key roles and responsibilities as a citizen is to be a participant, is to
Yeah.
engage, is to advocate, it is to make sure your voice matters and the things that you believe in and are passionate about matter, and to do so in within the construct of that society. And so, we have kids at such young ages trying to make sense of that in such a beautifully open and curious way. And it is incumbent upon all of us as the adults to lean into that curiosity and to help them come to their own conclusions, think critically, engage in ways that will ultimately support them to do that as an adult when their voice is actually counted as in a ballot, or where they can stand up and make change using the levers that exist in our democratic system.
Yeah.
And so that's more broadly, right? That's the big picture. And of course, from, a more educational, narrow standpoint, it's about teaching critical thinking skills. It's about teaching kids how to empathize and learn about other perspectives. It's a way to empower them, even at such a young age, to even make changes in their schools.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we find ourselves, again, we talked about how unprecedented this particular election is, and it's so polarizing. And I
Hmm.
think in this polarity and where we're getting our information from, sometimes we can end up in these echo chambers, not doing enough research. I think that some families would, and maybe even schools too, want to just kind of like not talk about it. We'll be more reactive instead of proactive. What are
Yeah,
some of the challenges around that? Why do you think, parents and schools might be challenged, particularly with this election,
yeah.
to have these conversations that can only help our students become more civically engaged and, I guess, avoid us from kind of being in the space that we're at right now in the future?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's natural for all parents to want to bubble wrap their kids, right? And, one of the things that actually St. Luke's is known for is that we believe that children should be children for a little longer than society allows for, right? And so that, I mean, that maternalistic, whether you're an educator, identify in any of the gender identity spectrums, that's still that idea of wanting to just wrap them in the warm hug and keep them away from all of the things that are hard and harsh in the world. But the reality is that kids are hearing about this everywhere. They're hearing about it on the playground. Our older students are hearing about it on social media. If they don't have access to social media, you just have to do a keyword search on any search engine, and it's right there in front of their
Mm-hmm.
faces. So, the reality is that they're seeing it. And I think the challenge is, how do we, as parents or as educators, communicate with our children in a way that acknowledges that they're seeing things, acknowledges their curiosity, but also acknowledges how just complicated this all is. And kids are always able to sniff out when
Oh,
we
yeah,
aren't being
yeah,
authentic.
absolutely.
They call us out. So I think it's totally understandable that this is all intimidating, and we need to think, hey, our kids need us.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids need us now more than ever. They need us to provide them with a firm understanding of the values that a family holds, or a school holds, and how to be grounded in those values as you start to interrogate what is going on in the world around and trying to make sense of it. And so some words of advice I have when we're dealing with that big intimidation is that we want to simplify our messages and really think about like what is a child really asking us, right? If they want to know about, one of the parties or both of the parties, they're asking just a real organizational question. Like what are these things? Why do they exist? Not necessarily a deep dive into the ideologies of each one, right? So really thinking about what a child's asking us. And then if something is more complicated, something that's out of your depths, because not every one of us is a is a US
A
historian,
pundit or
right?
historian or politician, right?
Right, is to be willing to go on that journey with your child, is to say, hey, that's a great question. Let's look this up together. Or if you're worried because your child might be a little younger and you're worried about if you did that search live, say, that's a great question. Let me look into it. And then you and I can look into what I've discovered together
Yeah.
and make it a joyful journey, so that it doesn't seem so intimidating and scary.
Mm-hmm.
In schools, I think what's challenging is that we have such diversity of thought in our schools, and that's not the challenge, right? That's the beautiful thing. We want diversity of thought. It is in these polarized times, how do we bring people together to be talking, and seeing each other on common ground, and also engaging in a way that is respectful and listening, actively listening to what is being shared, and thinking on those things, right? And it's not about your response or your knowledge per se, but really having a dialogue. And so, being able to connect kids to each other in a dialogue is something that I think all the educators out there today are grappling with. And I'm happy to go into our questions later if you want, about how that can look like in
Well,
the classroom.
that's a great segue because we were talking a little bit about this in preparation for this live. The different activities, what that looks like in school already, that's built around this idea of civic engagement. And we talked about it on, with the little ones on up through the older ones. And you have some examples of the different tools and resources that, again, that are already built into a lot of the curriculum in school that can, we can take a look at that and find the best practices and the worst practices, I guess, that are going on right now in real time and bring them into our spaces. So do you want to talk? That was a lot right there, but you want to get into the
It is a lot, right?
the different things that you even have going on right now that can lead itself to the more respectful application of, elections and civic duties and engagement.
Yes. Well, thanks, Gina. So, educators are, educators here at St. Luke's, educators across New York are thinking about their planned curricula. And, each school is different. And I'll go into that in a little bit about St. Luke's as an example. And then there's the unplanned, right? So we've got the planned discussions that we might want to have, the planned projects or activities, and then you have the unplanned ones. What I think is so beautiful, and why after in my 23rd year I've ended up here at St. Luke's is because we are a values-driven school. And so what's wonderful is that we work to embed agency, student voice and choice. Mm-hmm. And also what I think is most important is this idea that while we love the individual and we always are going to try to create individual experiences for our children throughout the 10 years here that they're here, we want each individual to realize that they